Hi everyone. I'm the lecturer for the module ARH2603. So I'm just going to go through the assignment 1, the art and craft debate, just to help you with your exam. A lot of you did quite well in it, and some struggled, a few of you struggled, and basically this video is for those who struggled. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to give a brief outline of what is expected of you and what you need to read, and how you need to format your assignment or your essay. Okay, so the first part of the assignment is going to start with your study guide. This is your primary literature. This is where you start off. So everyone has this. If you don't have it or you didn't get it, you can download it on my UNISA and you can print it, or you can just read it online. So the first part of the assignment is I wanted you to outline the art and craft debate. All right. Don't just start and go in and say Shonibare is a Nigerian artist. Do not assume that your reader knows what the art and craft debate is. Just generally in your writing, you should always explain concepts, just so that you've got that foundation to work from. Okay, so I want you to go to page 20 of your study guide, section 2, and it's got the art and craft debate. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to outline, I've highlighted some important notes. You need to read this. You need to read all of it so that you have a clear understanding. And that's what I'm looking for in your assignments. I don't want you to basically write everything from the study guide word for word. I'm looking for your understanding. Okay, so you're going to have to go through this. It's part of the module. You're going to have to read. You're going to have to go through this and then give me your own understanding when you write in the exam. So the first part I'm going to start with is page 20, and the last paragraph here, it says the art and craft debate. The art and craft debate revolves around the relative status awarded to different creative practices, with arts being regarded as more noteworthy than craft. This disparity between the status of art and craft has its roots in the Renaissance. Okay. So if you go on page 21, it goes on to explain what high art is. Okay, so by the 18th century in Europe, poetry, music, painting, sculpture, architecture, and dance were all known as the beautiful arts. So these 5 art forms during the 18th century in Europe were understood as the epitome of high art. Okay, they embodied all the values that were in that society at the time. And the values are individuality, genius, intellect, knowledge of ancient Greek and Renaissance history. Okay. So another thing that was important at the time is accurate aerial and linear perspective. If you look at the great masters of that time, Leonardo da Vinci, Michelangelo, all their work has really good perspective. It's mathematical, it's accurate, it's realism. And so do sculptures of men. Or if you look at David, the sculpture David, the proportions of the sculpture are similar to those of a person. They basically mirror those of a person. So this is understood as realism and naturalism. Okay. If you go on to page 22, it starts to outline what craft is, according to this debate. So it says the useful arts or applied arts indicate utilitarian function a created object might have. So these objects are basically made for sitting on, stirring with. It's a blanket or covering the floor. Okay. They include textile design, ceramic design, glasswork, jewelry design, etc. Okay. The applied arts or craft are lesser because they don't embody Western notions of individuality. Since they are made anonymously, they don't have uniqueness as they are produced in large scale and are repetitive, and they don't embody intellectuality that derives from formal theorized training. Because crafts have traditionally been taught by one generation to the next in a system of informal training outside institutions. So already here, what your study guide is starting to do is show what is used to evaluate what is craft and what is art. So they're saying that craft is anonymously made, so it has no author, it has no artist, whereas high art is made by, you know, these famous geniuses. Leonardo da Vinci, everybody knows their name. High art is the way you acquire knowledge in order to be a high artist is through formal training, whereas with craft it's passed down from one generation to another. Okay, and then it's also outlined. We said high art is sculpture, it's dance, it's music, it's poetry, it's architecture. Here they're saying craft is textile design, ceramic design, glasswork, jewelry, etc. Okay, so already the study guide is starting to tell you what constitutes as what and what. Okay, then you go on to page 23. The lower value placed on craft and applied art can be related to the differentiation in status between the genders as determined in a patriarchal society, as well as issues of race. Therefore, craft is often designated as women's work and as typical non-Western work. Okay, so again, here's another differentiation. They're saying craft is women's work and it's usually made by non-Western people. Okay, so anything that falls out of Europe is considered non-Western. So Africa, Asia, and America. So Europe and America are considered the West, and then everything outside of that, any continent outside of that, is the rest, basically. So anything that's made outside of that center would be considered craft. And also it's women's work. So whereas art is high art, it's made by men who are intellectual, which is intellect is associated with masculinity. Craft, which basically the study guide is saying does not need intellect to make. So that is a woman's work, basically, and it's non-Western people. So that's another element that they're using to divide the two. Okay? Then it goes on later on in that page, craft is often sold in formal fora, at road stalls, for instance, for a low price. Such craftsworks are furthermore made from materials that have a low status: clay, paint, animal fiber, wood. This is because they are freely available. Right. The art and craft debate can thus be seen as relating to the status of the maker, whether they're male or not, white or not, trained or not. And also in high art, the medium used is bronze, marble, and paint. Okay, whereas in craft, it's usually clay, wood, and fiber. All right, this is how the differences are. This is how they tell the difference between the two. And then institutions, whereas craft is sold and displayed in informal settlement, on the road, in a market, high art has a formal place. It's usually on your wall. It's in a gallery. It's in a museum. Okay. All right. So that's pretty much what I want you to get from the study guide. That's the foundation I want you to get from the study guide. If you look at your tutorial later, there are other readings that will help you build on this information regarding the debate. But one that I picked for these purposes, just to further reiterate the differences between art and craft, is the one by Paul Matthew, and it's called Towards a Unified Theory of Craft, volume 29, number 1, The Reconciliation of Difference. So this reading talks about the ceramic artist and how he what he notices about craft and how it's identified in the art world or in academia, how it's given a low status. Nobody wants their work to be identified as craft. So he outlines the differences. But there's another reading by Lusaka Wa. It's also quite clear. It's very easy to read, and it basically builds on the study guide. So you can also have a look at that. Actually, I recommend that you have a look at that. So I'm just going to go to this e-reserve. I'm going to go to page 76. And I'm going to look at this diagram here, this column comparison, which basically, further reiterates what's said in the study guide. And there's a few things that I picked out. He says art is high, craft is low. Okay. Art is elitist, craft is popular. So if you're interested in the subjects, you can go on to read other readings that are e-reserves. There's one that talks about Greenberg and how he was a writer during modernism, and how he differentiated between high art and low art. And he basically says this, that art is elitist and craft is popular. So what he understands as popular is kitsch. So all these ornaments that you find at dollar stores or at Pep or whatever, that's kitsch. So craft is popular. It's mass produced. It's cheap. It's based on popular culture. It's just there's no substance to it. That's what he says. Art is cerebral, craft is manual. So that basically picks up on the intellect. Art is something that comes from your mind. It's a concept. It's imagination, whereas craft is manual. It's repetitive. It's something you do with your hands. Art is conceptual, craft is material. So another element of high art, and this is another thing that Greenberg touches on, is that high art or art during modernism or whatever has a concept. It talks about something other than itself, like take for instance Duchamp's urinal, whereas he's not actually talking about the actual urinal. He's referring to something else that is just a symbol for something else, where it's looking at the change in the art world, that you don't have to, not everything has to be realism or naturalism. You can, anything can be art. So that one symbol, that one piece of craft actually is now referring to something else. So there's a concept behind the work. Okay. Art is concept. Okay. Art is idea, craft is matter. Art is male, craft is female. Art is individual, craft is community. So that goes again to the genius associated with high art, and the community, the how craft is usually anonymous. Nobody knows who made it. Okay. Art is innovative, craft is tradition. Art is beauty, craft is utility. So that also talks about how craft always has a function. All right. So it's usually a chair, it's jewelry, it's a table. It always has a function, whereas art is more about thinking, and it's more about beauty and representation. Okay. Art is beauty, craft is utility. Art is useless, craft is useful. Art is representation, craft is presentation. So all of this basically just sums up. I like this reading because it's clear and it's short. It sums up what the study guide basically says, how the differences are, how the two were separated, how art was separated and how craft was separated.